Well, Numsa spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi-Majola joins us now for more on that conversation. Good to have you, Phakamile, and thank you very much for coming on. It's global restructuring, optimizing its manufacturing footprint and portfolio amongst the reason. But I suppose if you localize it and you want to look particularly in South Africa and why they would not have want to take the alternatives that maybe you would have been presenting to them, one would say it's the economic challenges, it's the government interventions that are not adequate, other factors, logistical issues, and so on and so forth. Does that to you indicate that, I suppose, our structural reforms are not really doing what they're supposed to be doing, and maybe even go further than that and say our economic policy is not conducive for companies to want to come and manufacture here?
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to your viewers. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I think some of the things that you're raising are absolutely true in terms of the environment, because if you look at the some of the issues that Goodyear would have raised, for example, one of the big issues is the dumping of tyres onto the local sector, which makes it difficult for them to remain competitive. Numsa has actually spoken about this, and we even spoke about it today when we had our press conference, that we think government needs to intervene to protect the domestic industries and to protect localization and to stimulate domestic manufacturing. We said that we still have a problem of dumping of cheap tires from Cambodia, Vietnam, and China, and this is having an effect not just on Goodyear but on other tire companies. And our concern is that what Goodyear has done, other companies will follow suit. But I think it's also important to mention that when we were engaging on the consultation with the company through Section 189, what was also clear is that they were not interested in any alternatives. So they made it very clear that it didn't really matter what we could achieve in terms of, persuading government to shift policies, etc., to make the environment more conducive. A decision had been taken at the highest level to close down manufacturing in South Africa, and that is what they were implementing. They were not even really interested in engaging on, for example, like how much would they need to produce to break even, if I can use that as an example. They had already made up their minds that they were closing the plant. And that's what made it difficult, because usually when we are negotiating in Section 189 consultation, often companies do have problems. The problems might be internal. The problems might be a mixture of internal and also external issues relating to the economy, etc. But either way, there is a willingness to sort of share with us or bring us into confidence so that we can all work together and find a solution. Yeah. In this instance, Goodyear was not interested in that. They had already made up their minds that they were going to close the plant. They wanted the process of consultation to happen, quickly. And they had already earmarked the 15th of August as the last day. Yeah. So, it is very sad. And I mean, when you watch that report from your journalist and you hear from the people, I mean, we're not just talking about numbers here. There's human beings behind these decisions. There's families, some of them who were talking, 3 generations of families who've contributed to this company and who are devastated by this decision.
Now, when we were talking to you, I mean, in a couple of years ago, when we were talking the closure of SAA, yourself as a union would have conjured up an investor to try and salvage the airline and save the jobs. I mean, at this particular point, is there no option of such an investor coming on? The infrastructure is there, maybe acquiring that infrastructure, saving those jobs and keeping those people online?
So one of the things we've secured as part of this agreement is that there's going to be a 2-month window within which Numsa, working together with the DTIC, we will try and find an equity partner that's going to allow us to basically start up the plant again so that we can continue with manufacturing tires in that province. The fact of the matter is that even though we think we've done a pretty good job in negotiating retrenchment packages, these packages are not going to last for long. The Eastern Cape is a very economically depressed province. It's got the highest unemployment rate in the country. And the closure of Goodyear is really going to make the economic problems, which are already bad in the Eastern Cape, is going to make them so much worse. So the burning question that Numsa needed to answer was, what happens after these packages run out? What happens when workers are unable to find jobs? And if you look at the unemployment statistics, unfortunately, they don't paint a good picture. The likelihood of many of these workers finding jobs is very low.
Yeah.
And this is why one of the things we have done is to approach DTIC to say, let's work together to find an equity partner. And they've agreed. They're working with us on this. And part of the plan is that the partners that we find, and already there has been some interest, there have been some interested partners that have reached out, and talks are happening. We are hoping that we will be able to actually salvage the situation, and that production can begin again and manufacturing can begin again. And whatever this new company that emerges, what it will also include within it some kind of share ownership for workers as well. So we really are hopeful that we will be able to achieve this. We hope that we'll find the right people to partner with us on this so that we can actually resolve this crisis of the closure of Goodyear.
At the highest level, I mean, probably 2 to 3 decades are here. Most of them have been there for like 36 years or so. Is that enough in terms of the negotiations that you would have put down for potential entrepreneurs to emerge, some of your members? Is that enough money for them to maybe even start a small business venture alongside the trade that they've been in, bringing in the DTI there as well to assist?
Well, the packages that have been negotiated, the minimum that payout that workers will receive will be 100,000. Previously, Goodyear was only offering 50,000. Numsa managed to double that. And the minimum is 100,000, but it ranges from 100,000 to $1 million, depending on the number of years that you would have served. So yes, there are some workers who've been there for many years and are likely to receive packages to the value of about $1 million. It would be up to them what they do with those packages. Perhaps they will be able to start up something, and we hope that that is an option available to many of them. The bottom line for us is, we had to do 2 things at the same time within a very short period of time. The Section 189 notice was given to us in early June. In that time, we not only had to find a way to negotiate good packages, but also to persuade DTIC on this alternative program of action in terms of finding a person or a company or a partner that would want to start up a tire business to replace Goodyear. So that has also not been easy to do. I would hope that many workers are going to be able to start up businesses and that the DTIC will support them. But we also hope that we'll be able to start up this plant again.
Yeah.
But also, Thabo, the conditions must change because the issues that you've raised about the dumping of tires, for example, onto the market, if those conditions don't change, then unfortunately what happened now with Goodyear closing is likely to happen again, not just with whatever partner we might find, but also with other tire companies who might say that these are the same reasons why they feel they want to stop manufacturing in South Africa.
U.S. tariff, the closure of Goodyear, or this disinvestment decision, and there have been plenty other multinational corporations that have chosen to disinvest in South Africa. Is this a wake-up call for South Africa to encourage not only well, black ownership, yes, but local ownership mostly, managing these assets locally and owning them locally, because if you're local, you have no other place to go.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things we even said today is that this is the one thing that government, frankly, has not done a very good job of, is pushing localization. If you look at the auto sector, for example, as part of the presentation that the GS made to the NARCAM show last week, he said that the research that we had embarked on proved that if we had just increased the demand for localization by 5%, we would have been able to contribute at least 30 billion in terms of local production. I mean, that's not a small thing. And it's disappointing that our government is not more radical on the issue of localization. I think what Trump is teaching us is that we cannot depend on certain relationships. We really have to build up our own manufacturing capacity so that when situations like this occur, we don't find ourselves wanting, like right now we're scrambling to try and replace the negative impact that has been caused by the tariffs that Trump has imposed on us. But also it creates an opportunity for us to leverage relationships with other parties. One of the things that the Numsa the Numsa Central Committee resolved on is the fact that we should be approaching negotiations with the United States with a lot more bullishness, if I can put it like that, a lot more aggression, in the sense that as much as America has put tariffs on us and they're making all these demands, America needs critical minerals from us. And if they want those critical minerals, then we should be in a position where we are also able to make our own demands. Other countries have done this. Brazil has done this. Mexico has done this. In fact, Brazil has gone very far in asserting its sovereignty against Trump. They've gone as far as saying, actually, by the way, you're not even our biggest trading partner. We're just going to strengthen our ties with BRICS. In South Africa, the United States is not our biggest trading partner. China is. So we really should stop looking at the situation with cap in hand and throwing our hands up in the air as if we don't have options. We do have options. And it's about time that we started exercising our sovereignty as a state and stopped, being dependent, and really start to drive an agenda for ourselves so that we don't find ourselves in situations like the one we are currently in with the relationship with the United States.
Phakamile Hlubi-Majola, appreciate your time and thank you very much for your intervention this evening. That is Numsa spokesperson there, Phakamile Hlubi-Majola, and the closure of the Goodyear factory in Kariga. Some 900 jobs there being affected, 750 directly, if you like, but more, of course, families that are going to be affected by that. Now,